But I prefer the radium.
Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 160.
I think I'm only at 167.
167th iteration of the show, recorded on the
15th.
15th of November.
Because we had Friday the 13th this week. Ooh.
Oh, we did.
It's not much for anybody unless you're like a fan of the Friday the 13th movies.
All right.
In which case, hey, congratulations, you watched some more Friday the 13th movies on Friday the 13th. Yay!
That's good.
Yeah.
My name is Josh Levin, as it always is.
A super enthusiastic Ryan Kirkby on the other side here.
And
Woo!
Ryan's here with me, as always.
As always and forever. You can't get rid of me that easy.
Oh, boy. Well, yeah.
Yes.
How are things here?
Not too bad. I do have a little bit of news. Things happened in fiction-related stuff.
We're talking about, fiction
yes.
news.
I guess I'll start with a small, little weird one. Link from the Legend of Zelda series now has a sister. They have officially created a female counterpart to Link that isn't Zelda, because Zelda's the princess, not the heroic adventurer. Although she sometimes does dress up as a character named Sheik and goes out adventuring, but whatever. It's like a hidden persona, right?
Okay.
And so Link's older sister is just called Linkle.
Link and Linkle.
Yes. So you got that weird quasi-dwarven naming style going on.
Mm-hmm.
Your Oin and Gloin, your Link and Linkle.
Yeah. People don't do that nowadays, like in the modern world.
Not very often, but I won't lie. If my daughter had been twins, I was heavily considering Zoe and Chloe.
Okay.
On the other hand, I also could have gone with Zoe and Ashley and go with a Z to A to Z thing.
Oh, yeah. So
that way it wouldn't be like a rhyming sense, but it would definitely still fit some sort of notable pattern. So,
so a female Link, okay, because some people think,
that's
Link's
that reoccurring joke. What if Zelda was a boy, or what if Zelda was a girl, and all that stuff? And it's like, no. You guys never understood the series. You play as Link in the Legend of Zelda. Zelda's the princess you're going for. She gets in a whole lot of danger. Triforce issues. Turns out the Triforce of Wisdom doesn't make you smart enough to get out of the way of trouble. You need the Triforce of Courage to, rescue the Triforce of Wisdom from the Triforce of Power, which is what Ganon typically has.
So in the Link story or
stories, as they are
Zelda,
considered to be all happening in the same sort of reality, albeit at different points, where Link and Zelda come back again and again.
Because we see him as a child and as an adult.
Yes, sometimes he does travel through time as well.
Yeah, so there's time travel.
It was going to happen eventually. You run a series long enough, eventually you're going to have time travel.
So if you're a time traveler and you have a brother or a sister, then your brother or your sister could be both your older and younger, depending on what time period you travel.
Well, that's the thing. I believe the older qualifies as older as in they were born first.
Okay.
So no matter how far back you go, that 3-year-old kid will still be your older sibling.
All right.
So there's a weird quirk of chronal, chronal/family relationships.
Yep. Okay.
But that's how it goes. And I don't know why she just never appeared before, but apparently she's in there now, and yay.
Well, in there, like in the latest game.
What's that? I'm not certain if she's going to appear in the latest game or if she's going to be like an alternate counterpoint to the Smash Brothers thing going out.
Oh, okay.
I am not 100% certain as to how in-depth they're going to wind up making her as a repeating character.
Sometimes they give them their own game, like a new character will get their own whole game.
That's the thing with The Legend of Zelda. I've been looking up and they've got characters, and they seem like very interesting characters. They got decent motivations and all that. But if you're not, like Link, Zelda, or Ganon, the chances of you coming back are not 100%.
Okay, yeah.
Like there's that Midna girl who's crazy little witch thing that winds up being a regular-sized person in disguise. Not a lot done with it after she was a big thing.
Okay.
So, it happens. That said, they are putting up we'll call that planting seeds. With all these characters, you plant the seeds. eventually someone's going to come along and make a wonderful story involving all of them in one grand orchestral game that will be considered like just a redefining moment for the series. And you can't reap that harvest if you don't plant your seeds. So
Okay.
yeah.
So like you're saying, they just put out like a press release. Link now has a sister.
Basically, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, like, oh hey, here's, like, it was shown in some concept sketch art at work, I guess about a year ago, but all the characters in that one, aside from Linkle, were like rejected characters, so everyone thought, oh yeah, female Link, rejected, not gonna happen. It's like, no, turns out she kind of rocks, so we're gonna use her at least once.
I actually don't even know, but there has been a cartoon, right?
Oh yeah, with part of the Mario Brothers.
And is there a comic or like some kind of
I remember
ongoing...
Nintendo Power, they actually had a comic for Link's Adventures, and I quite liked it. It was a nice, effectively, I guess a dry run for what the Legend of Zelda Super Nintendo game was like.
Okay, yeah.
That said, I think they really could do well at considering expanding out their media sources on a more regular basis.
Okay, have they ever done any kind of movie?
No,
not even animated, or
no. The closest they got was like the Zelda CDI stuff, where there was a lot of like cartoon animation sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But nobody likes to talk about that, and those Links and Zeldas have been officially stricken from the record. They never happened.
Okay, yeah.
Which is like no love. But then again, it wasn't like the best game, so it's like whatever. They're apparently they got erased from history or something. I don't know.
Okay.
They never happened. But that's as close as you'd get to like having a cartoon or like a full-length movie for them. Which I think is sad, because Mario got a movie, terrible though it may have been. I didn't mind about half of it. That's still pretty good. But I think Link, has got things set up where you could tell a grand sort of style. And let's face it, they've shown from the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit stuff, you can fill those seats with that sort of story.
Yeah.
So maybe what's going to have to happen is you're going to have that person come up with a grand orchestral, all the characters are involved, sort of, like a video game, before they'll say, okay, we'll take the plot from this, and then we're turning it into the movie. Okay.
By the way, the land of Hyrule, I guess it is,
and the neighboring lands. They got neighboring lands. Yeah.
Is it its own planet, or is it like Lord of the Rings, like Earth in some distant past? Or
I believe it is its own world, although its shape may not be defined as how we consider like astrophysics to say. It's got to be a sphere. It could just be like a plane of existence, and then you've got your shadow world, where Ganon typically rules from with all the monsters.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, its geometry is maybe open to some interpretation.
Okay, cool.
But that's okay. It doesn't always have to take place in human history. And Lord knows every time they come up with a new game and a new Link and Zelda sort of thing as it goes on, they're putting more history in. So either you got to go back further towards the Hyborian Age, or closer up to the present if it's going to be on actual Earth. So
yeah. So
I'm okay with it being a different cosmos entirely.
Okay. Cool.
Helps tell the story, keeps things simple.
So as far I guess we don't know what the implications of a sister for Link.
Well, see, that's the thing though. Is like Link has had family before, and it'd be something like, "Oh, Grandpa," and then like Grandpa says, "Oh, so the princess is being captured. Here's a sword, here's a shield, and some basic cruddy armor. I'm dying now." And that's kind of how it seems to go in that sort of relationship. And there's not much where Link actually has for family. He's like the completely lone character. It helps for Link being you, because you don't have your family in there. Link doesn't have any family in there. But I think it does hinder storytelling. Because, you can do more than just have it be, about saving the princess. It could be about saving the kingdom. And who's in the kingdom? Well, your family is, your friends are. And Link's got friends.
Yeah,
but he doesn't always seem to have an abundance of family. So I'm quite happy that they might be able to make it, be a thing where, hey, you could do, instead of playing like those games where you have like 3 or 4 Links, one for each person, it could be Link, Linkle, Grandpa Link, and Zelda. There you go.
Oh yeah.
So that way you get your 4-person group in, and it doesn't have to be like a palette swap of Link 3 times over. So it's like,
yeah. Well, in some ways, like a sister of Link would would in some ways be a palette swap because...
Well, not in this case. She winds up wearing a bit of a different outfit,
okay,
and using a different weapon, as what's shown. She's more of the bow wielder sort of thing, as opposed to a sword. No, Link is no slouch to using a bow himself. Apparently, she's doing more towards that. So it wouldn't be a palette swap in this case, even though they would be very closely related. Probably still maintaining the green theme for both of them. Zelda goes for purple, and I don't know, Grandpa goes for old person color, gray, brown, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that old yet. I don't know automatically what old people coloring goes for.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I think there's some interesting story potential in there. How much they'll keep it up is up to debate. But like I say, more seeds to get a better harvest later on. Hooray!
Cool.
I suppose the big news this week is the release of a game, you may have heard it, it's called Fallout 4.
Fallout 4, everybody's playing Fallout 4.
The internet is just going nuts on this sort of thing, and like there's basically two groups of people. Those who are saying, I can't do anything except play Fallout 4. Like, they actually, I saw a thing over on, I guess it was the meme-based website, the Pornhub traffic. At the release of Fallout 4, Pornhub took a drastic drop in page views.
Oh.
So yeah, and it's like, dude, nobody was doing anything except playing, like Fallout 4 when it just came out.
Okay, yeah.
It's that big a game. It draws people away from pornography, which, is a pretty big thing for the internet.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's basically people playing Fallout 4 and people saying, oh, I'm not playing Fallout 4, I feel so alone. And here I am just playing the Secret World again and enjoying it. Oh, boo-hoo.
Yeah, well, we all have our games that we still like the most, I guess. Yeah.
Well, so that's the thing is for me this week, I've been just doing mostly the same, Halloween quest and a chance to get the uber rare Geist cycle and just, motor around Transylvania on a Ghost Rider's, a motorcycle.
All right.
So that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But that said, I'm having fun even if I don't wind up getting anything new. Oh, well. Although I do think I figured out why last week I encountered so many of those kitties of Ulthar that are only supposed to spawn upon the death of another creature.
Okay.
In the game, they've got these creatures called the Draugr, which are Nordic monsters. And what they do is they'll take a person and lure them into the sea, kill them, and then turn them into a zombie that crawls up on land. It turns into a big pod, and then the pod hatches.
Okay.
And so what I think is happening, from what I saw, was these incubated zombies come up, and oh hey, now they've got the cursed thing on them. So if they die, they'll become like a kitty of Ulthar. And so then they'll go to the spot where they're supposed to go, turn into a pod. And then because they die, the kitty spawns there, but because nothing happens, and it's not a typical, this creature has died, they don't despawn.
I see.
So I think it's a quirk of the game, based on, any creature in this zone could have a chance of getting the cursed, I guess it's not really a debuff, it's just a cursed effect, where if they die, another monster spawn comes on out of it.
Okay.
And so I think that's why I was encountering so many of them last week, is it kept happening, because eventually the pod will incubate fully and then open up and a monster should come out. Unless the monsters are all occupied in all the available local slots, in which case it'll just pop away. Another zombie will be spawned and come on in. And then eventually you're going to have so many of them coming up with that cursed effect that you'll get stacks of 5 or 6 cats of Ulthar in the one spot just waiting for something to happen. So I think I finally uncovered the solution to that mystery. So hooray!
Yeah, okay.
I didn't get any experience for it, but at least I'm more wise in the quirks of the game system now. So yeah. And I was doing that. I was having lots of fun doing the quest over and over again, because it's a good, fun daily quest.
Yeah.
Where I get to shoot lots of things, run away from lots of things, and go around learning riddles and mysteries of the secret world.
Mm-hmm.
That said, one of the days earlier this week, I did manage to actually get out and do something like a non, a seasonal quest. And I got into the next zone of the Transylvanian story arc, and I had some fun playing around in there. So yay! Unfortunately, because of all this stuff going on daily, and all the busyness and craziness at work this week, I got absolutely no Minecraft done at all again this week.
No, didn't.
And not a single word of NaNoWriMo Although I do now have 2 storyline plots I think would be good enough to write up for a story or a short story.
You at least have ideas.
I have ideas, which, let's face it, you talk to authors, that's maybe the first and biggest hurdle to try and get through.
Oh, okay.
The cursed writer's block, I don't know what to write about.
Okay, yeah. So for some people, I suppose, yeah.
At least I got that going for me. How about you, though, Josh? How's your NaNoWriMo going this week?
My NaNoWriMo. Well, I was going to start, but I didn't. Oh, yeah, I didn't start my NaNoWriMo. I can still do it. I still have time. I could still probably squeeze in 50,000 words. But I haven't yet, and I don't know. It's
a good thing I didn't sign up on the official website, or I'd be really red in the face right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, every step is a step, right?
Yeah.
So signing up on the website, even if you don't actually get any words
Sometimes it's a nice way to push yourself forward into something you would otherwise shirk off, like I've done in this entire month.
Well, and you got to start with 100 words, and then the next 100, and the next 100, and then it's 1,000, and then before you know it, you've written your novel. But I'm afraid I have not been able to. I've not been able to even start.
Oh, you do have a good idea to write with, right?
Yeah, I have a couple. I mean, I was going to do The Animal Mafia, which was just going to be a series of telling stories about animals that are
breaking the kneecaps of other animals.
It's going to be kind of dark, yeah. But yeah, I didn't.
2 legs good, 4 legs bad, but it doesn't matter when all the knees on the legs are broken.
Yeah, there's part of it right there. But yeah, that was just to get myself, putting out some kind of content. So, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you could have a really dark, crazy kid story going on. Kid story not really for kids.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Animal Mafia. So in the Animal Mafia, if you sleep with the fishes, is that a punishment, or just like you're a pervert sort of thing? Is that like fish prostitution a thing?
Oh well,
Is sleeping with the fishes kind of like a drug dealer that takes his own drugs?
The thing is, the Animal Mafia it's very much about eat or be eaten. There isn't actually that much sex.
Okay, guys, just make sure, because you cheese off the regular mafia, and you wind up sleeping with the fishes.
Yeah.
But in an animal mafia, that might just have different implications for its term.
You still sleep with the fishes, but the fish eat your decomposing body.
Okay. Just making sure on that one there. Very much. I see stories forming up already. Crazy, wonderful, weird stories.
Yeah.
So, I encourage you. Thumbs up.
Well, I can still do it. Like I'm saying.
I could still write my ideas too, but oh my goodness. I wake up and my first thought is, oh boy, I can't wait to go to sleep tonight. So that might not be a good sign.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be burning both ends of the candle.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. The only other thing that I've been up to is a couple of comedy shows on Monday and Thursday that I always go to in Victoria. Come on out if our listeners are in Victoria at all. Come on out to the Ratfish, which is the Ratfish Lounge is at the Ramada, and I do the open mic there.
Very
and
nice.
I got promoted from doing nothing to watching the door.
Ooh,
so,
nice.
I'm the door watcher now. And comedy, so comedy happens on Mondays and Thursdays.
Comedy happens whenever it's in your heart. But,
That's
like the
true.
pros are on the Monday.
Yeah. And I had a craving for, I wanted to play, Mario 64, do you remember that?
Oh, I do
that
indeed.
game.
I still want to try it and find some way to play it again and get all 120 stars instead of just the 100.
I know. I had such a craving to play it for some reason. I must have seen something, maybe some Reddit post or maybe Imgur, like, oh, remember this game? And it's like, oh, yeah. So what I did, I just looked up on YouTube, let's see if anybody's done a Let's Play. There's like, a
billion
two dozen complete playthroughs of that game. So I just watched someone else play it, and that basically
it is more time efficient for a lot of us as opposed to finding the system, getting set up, learning how to play it right. Let's just get a pro to do it, and I'll watch.
I don't know if they're. Yeah, I mean, the guy's a.
Well, if they completed it, that's pretty professional to me.
That's true. Yeah, he gets all 120 stars. So yeah, I can't remember the name of the Let's Player who I ended up watching, but yeah, I watched somebody play through. Yeah, Mario. It's a good game. I think it holds up, like as far as just
the
being
graphics,
fun game
maybe
to
not
experience.
100%, but definitely the story still holds.
Yeah, that's true. The newer Mario games are a lot more better graphics. Yeah,
well, they should be by now. I mean,
but yeah, it has nice controls. Nice, it's 3D, which was crazy for the time.
Yeah, I remember just being able to. Oh boy, look at me! I'm running and jumping in 3, dimensions. Woo!
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to accomplish as far as like the mechanics of moving the camera around and allowing the player to actually control.
And there are still people complaining about the camera controls on 3D games.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, take from that what you will.
Yeah, and I played a bit of Minecraft too, a little bit.
Show off.
I tried to summon the Wither.
Ooh.
I successfully accomplished summoning the Wither, but the Wither withered me.
Oh.
So now there's a Wither running around. I summoned it in like a forest glade, like there's a bit of meadow with forest all around, like surrounded by forest. So I summoned it there. So it's still there, and fortunately that was far away from anything that I had built. So it's just hanging out there, probably shooting sheep. I don't know. I guess it's technically it's dormant while you're not in the vicinity. Well, the player is not in the vicinity.
It's not loaded up.
Yeah. So I have to basically re-gear myself and like get all like, and I want to make sure like this time is like okay, getting blast protection, and getting the best armor I can, the best weapons and stuff, just so I can really take it down.
Diamond
fast.
up.
Yeah, so that's taking some time. The other thing I'm doing is I'm like completely. I think I was doing this last time. I was making a very flat area in the Nether, like. So now I've done 2 levels of like super flat, like as far as you can see in any direction, and then it's in a Nether fortress, so that the skeletons will spawn.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
The Nether skeletons, the Wither skeletons,
and
then so I can kill them and farm them and try and get skulls. I have enough skulls now to summon another Wither.
I have so many skulls in my game. But I do not have any Wither skeleton skulls at all.
Yeah, you hate the Nether, so you never
Well, I hate the Nether,
one.
and then I wound up busting the game in just the right way that I can't get them to spawn ever again. So it's like, ow. I could have had black, cool, crazy skeleton skulls. And there are some things I do need some of those Nether stars for to advance in some of the mods. It's like, guess not. Guess I'm not going there right now. And that's why I'm setting up my my storage room dimension when I get back around to it.
Yeah, back into Minecraft.
That's the thing. I only got so many hours. I got to be a dad now.
I mean, I understand.
Do you know how hard it is to just sit down and play video games when you get home from work and your daughter runs up to you and says, "Daddy, I missed you very, very much." It's like, well, hell no, I'm not playing games for at least an hour. I got to play with this kid.
They need to make Minecraft say that to you. Like, Daddy, I missed you.
Welcome back. Oh, I missed you so much.
I miss you so much, Steve.
Or the alternative is to get my daughter advanced enough in skills and cognizant abilities and all that to get her to play Minecraft with me. Which means I guess my wife will get booted off her own computer and have to go do something else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how many years is this from now? Maybe by that point you'll have gotten a raise or 2 or a different job, and maybe you'll be able to. Or
maybe we should just save up a little bit and get my wife a new computer so that the old computer can go to my daughter.
So he can have the old one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds pretty good.
That's good. Actually, or like, I mean, what do you have for a netbook? That's probably not going to run Minecraft, is it?
That can barely run, like Internet Explorer. Like, having 3 or 4 pages up on there pretty much grinds this thing to a halt. It was never meant or designed for me to be doing all that sort of stuff for. It's really just something for me to sit down and do some reading and do some typing and all that sort of thing. Anything going online is considered strictly bonus for me.
Okay, yeah.
And it still does all of that very well, as well as play some nice text adventure games.
All right.
Stone Soup. I can do Dwarf Fortress. but it has problems. But then again, every computer has problems running Dwarf Fortress. There's no machine powerful enough to outcompete the resource demands of Dwarf Fortress. So, I'm not going to hold it against it for that one. That game gets a complete pass when it chugs your computer to a standstill.
Yeah.
It does what it needs to, for now.
Cool. Did you have any other stuff, stuff to report? Any other simulations you've run?
An answer to a problem many people have had appeared to me this week. I was watching Teen Titans Go. I don't care what anyone else says. I love it as a series. It's very entertaining, and my daughter loves it. So we will drop my wife off at work. It'll be Mondays, Tuesdays. I love my weekend with my daughter. And we'll come back home. I'll make up some like peanut butter toast or something like that, and we'll just watch a little cartoon and just have a nice little casual morning together. And yeah, sure enough, now that I've got the whole Cartoon Network channel, Teen Titans Go is on. We get to watch 2 of them, and we're watching and enjoying them. And one of them earlier this week that I got a chance to look at explained why Teen Titans Go is different from Teen Titans, and so drastically so, because there's apparently a lot of people on the internet saying Teen Titans Go is absolutely nothing. It's just a horrible insult. I hate the whole thing. Why didn't we get Teen Titans Season 6 like we wanted?
Yeah.
And so they actually explain that in Teen Titans Go. They have a villain called Control Freak, and he's like a nerd freak that has like a remote control that allows him to enter into like the TV. And so he has like TV power controls. And he explains to them like he's tired of their lowbrow, Teen Titans Go humor. And they better, smarten up and do better, or he's going to reboot their reality. And then later on, they find out he actually has already rebooted the reality. And he's like, okay, I'll show you. This earlier reality, these Teen Titans weren't about, like poot jokes and burrito, food eating. They were about, depth and character and pathos. And then he does like a quick little montage where he shows them all the reality that used to be. And they say, we want more. He's like, there was no more. That's when I rebooted the reality. He's like, then there was never any resolution to all the loose hanging plots. You're the worst monster of them all. And so they actually, explain, like why there's no season 6. It's like, dude rebooted reality, which in the Marvel universe happens with surprising frequency. So it's like, I enjoy it even more now. So there's an official answer. Why they all sound the same. They're the same people, but different / cheaper animation style. And I guess a more focus on funny humor and songs as opposed to, deep and, serious story arcs. Although, I do have a trick. I'm watching Teen Titans with my daughter. And we are just starting Season 5. So while we might be watching Teen Titans Go, we still have Teen Titans left to watch. It's not over yet for us. We still have more because I've paced myself and I'm watching it with my daughter. And she's digging it.
Good for you.
Although we are taking a bit of a break because I rented the complete first season from the local library and we're watching it on the big screen here in the main room. And it's just something nice to watch and she enjoys it. So we got Titans to spare. Woo! But I found that to be an interesting little bit where they actually took the time to explain out and like, why is it different? And you know what? I don't care. I'm enjoying them both either way. Hooray! But yes, that's been my week. Anything else for you this week?
No. I think
it's just me, or did this week go by really quickly?
It seemed to go by quickly, yeah. I mean, we had a holiday in the middle of it, but yeah.
Really quickly, and yet I still seem so very tired.
Huh.
I could have... that's the thing. It's like, for some reason, it feels like it went by really quickly. On the other hand, I could have sworn the last time we did a podcast was like 2-3 weeks ago.
Wow.
So maybe I need like more sleep to get a grip on this the weekly situation. I don't know, man.
Maybe. I don't know.
It's been nuts.
Do you want to jump right into our main topic?
Yes. You presented a very interesting topic, quandary point to me. This as we were eating before our podcast, the desolate landscape.
Yeah,
or
Desolate
expanse.
Or Desolate Wasteland,
Yes.
or The Hostel, or something like that.
The Barrens. But not the Barrens from the World of Warcraft, which is actually rich and teeming with life.
And that's what every desert documentary I ever watched is like. You might think that the desert is a dry and desolate and lifeless place, but really it's a fragile and full of teeming with life. And it kind of, in a lot of ways, it is. Sure, I mean.
Well, that's the thing, though, is because like you mentioned, like like this wasteland for me, and I automatically had 4 things pop up in my head. Because apparently I'm not the one guy to have just one image as things come up. I've got like a wide world of sports sort of montage thing going around here. The first was the Arctic terrain. Because I guess things are getting a little cold out there these days, so I guess, you say wasteland, I'm picturing, the Arctic Circle and north.
So you're picturing ice fields then?
Ice fields and the permafrost tundra.
Yeah. Okay.
And the areas where you'd expect to see a mammoth walking across.
A mammoth, all right.
Or people like me would expect to see a mammoth walking across. I don't know how much, sci-fi, fake history you guys have seen.
Were the mammoths, are they like forest animals, or do they live on the treeless tundra? Or did the tundra sort of encroach on their territory and that's why they all froze?
No, they were well adapted to the tundra lifestyle.
Okay.
Their horns, the tusks, were meant to help, shovel like snow out of the way as they're rooting.
They'd eat like moss and lichen and stuff?
Yes, for such a big creature, although... Don't get me wrong, they're not as actually big as an elephant. They're about 3/4 the size, so the volume is much reduced on that.
But that's still like bigger than a bull.
That is pretty darn big, yeah.
And that's kind of weird that, they must, because elephants we know have to eat a lot. Like they have to just constantly be eating, I don't know, I guess
and
they
these
eat
are
grass
thermally
and leaves.
insulative beasts too, because you gotta maintain, your body heat when you're a mammal up in the Arctic Circle.
Yeah. So they must just constantly be eating if they have to eat.
And they would eat a whole lot during the green months, sort of thing, when the snow's not there. And they'd effectively fatten up, like a bear, but just not go into slumber. They'd be active all year round.
Okay.
To the best of our knowledge, the mammoth, despite what many people believe, actually existed up to 3,000 years ago. So Jesus couldn't have ridden a mammoth, but mammoths could, I guess, technically have helped build the pyramids, chronologically.
Yeah.
It would have been a very poor creature to do that. You would have been better off with a lot of other creatures.
Yeah, I've seen that pointed out a few times on the, in the internet, like weird facts that you might not have thought of, is that, the mammoths and the pyramids were around or pyramids were being built, and mammoths were still around.
So it's just one of those weird things about that. So it's like they are very recently gone. So you could conceivably have old folklore stories from so many generations ago about the great mammoth beast, and actually have that be valid and not just some crazy, you're watching too many Flintstones as a kid, Grandma. Come on.
Right. Well, so essentially there were mammoths before the days, in the days, because this is... the Bering Strait was the Bering Land Bridge was a thing.
Oh yeah, they were around for a while, ways before that. But here's the big thing though, is that about 6,000 years ago we started doing cuneiform stuff in writing. So the mammoth post-dates the invention of writing. We could still find some form of writing, pictoglyphs or whatever. Maybe something a little bit more actual complex. Towards the hieroglyphic or words. That describes the actions and the daily habits of a mammoth. It is conceivably possible.
Yeah, well,
it's pretty boss.
I seem to remember those cave drawings that they
the Lascaux caves.
They have. I don't know if they have elephants or whatever.
I do believe they are mammoths as they describe them.
Yeah, they have mammoths in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go.
But it shows how humans interact with them, but nothing known, naturalists say, the mammoth does this in the winter.
Okay.
They did appear to be migratory, so it's not like they would have wound up being up around, Victoria Island, up in BC, up in the Northwest Territories.
Okay.
In the winter months, they would have migrated south as things go.
Okay. Can they swim in Arctic waters?
I believe they probably could have, although it's never really a good idea to swim unless you've got polar bear style protection.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I'm not 100% sold as to how good their fur was against that.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up. I don't know.
That's the thing. It's likely one of the things still debated, because although we have samples of their fur, it's not quite the same as from an actual living creature and how they utilized it. So.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah.
But yes, that was only one of the 4 images that came to mind when you said like the Desolate, like wastelands.
Okay.
The next one was your traditional like Saharan desert of just sand. Endless, like dunes of sand, sort of thing, under a hot blazing sun with a sky of azure blue. Which is, well, by the way, one of the teeming, things that say, oh yes, it is teeming with land, like wildlife going on there, and there's a lot of ants going on. Ants do some very interesting things to help make sure they don't like blow out from heat and that stuff. And there's a lot of good nighttime life. Turns out, walking across the desert during the day is one of the stupidest things you can do. Unless I guess there's like good cloud cover, but it's a desert. There's not like a lot of good cloud cover. It's a very dry place.
Okay, so you should walk at night, is what you're saying?
Well, start like getting towards the sunset sort of thing. The higher up hours, apparently something from about 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Those are the really stupid hours to try and go about and doing stuff because the sun's just blazing down too much.
Yeah.
After about 2:30, now you start moving.
Okay.
All weather dependent, of course. If there's a big old sandstorm coming up, don't go anywhere. Come on, man. The other one was the other end of the spectrum. As opposed to the land without any water, it's the land of only water, the ocean, which is a nice, beautiful place, but most of it is completely inhospitable to human life in the fact that there's nothing for us to eat. There isn't even a ground for us to properly, rest our, feet on.
Yeah.
It is one of the most inhospitable wastelands possible on Earth for us.
I remember reading, though, I think it was Life of Pi. I think he catches fish off of, he's in a lifeboat stranded in the ocean.
In which case a lifeboat is a very good way to attract fish, because turns out the sun hurts fish the same way it hurts our skin.
Oh, okay, so they'll hide underneath your boat?
Yes, and you can have entire little, temporary ecosystem set up from a big, bunch of, moss, kelp floating up on the surface, where the shade it provides will allow fish to go there and bigger fish to prey on them, and the small fish eat, the moss stuff and all that that's growing off. And so you can get ecosystems building up whenever the moment arises. So yes, a boat, a slow enough moving boat, not none of the powered stuff, would work as a very nice attractant to fish. So hooray! That said, it was a fictional story. Don't take your entire belief on a fictional story, which by its own admission was heavily symbolic.
Hey, what happens to whales when they die?
Depends on the whale where it is. Sometimes whales die because a giant squid got them and fought them.
So something else eats them.
But by and large, what happens is yes, their body does go to the other half of the wasteland in the ocean, the bottom. The bottom of most of the ocean is just where all the tiny little, just nearly microscopic detritus filters eventually down, and so the bottom of the ocean isn't like you see it in some cartoons and all that where it's just it's just a rocky, it's a rocky bottom on here where you can walk on
driving cars around on it.
Exactly, it's very unrealistic even for a cartoon program with a talking sponge. Because the bottom of most of the ocean is actually just it's a lot like a snowy ground going on. Mm-hmm. Where what happens is, just the tiny little detritus that doesn't get eaten or is filtered out by all the fish and all that, just eventually slowly makes its way down to the bottom and just settles in a nice little, clay sort of, fuzz. But yeah, what will happen is a whale will actually crash down there, and the whale corpse is just oh my god, sumptuous feast. And so you get the creatures that are living at the very bottom underneath the stuff. It's the best food possible, manna from heaven. And you get other fish making the dive down if they can go down far enough. Depends on how far deep down the corpse has gone. And they'll wind up eating it, and it winds up becoming just an absolute smorgasbord for everything. Because when you get the lower trophic levels, you get the higher trophic levels. So eventually you get sharks coming in and eating the fish that are eating the corpse. Okay. And it's just a huge banquet for all sorts of marine life.
Because you remember, when a whale washes up, or when a whale gets beached on the beach in Oregon or here in BC for that matter.
It happens.
They talk about it and they say, oh, it smells so bad. It's I don't know if it's miles around, but it's, a fair area.
It's not so much that it smells bad that you can smell it for like miles/kilometers around, as it is there's just so much rotting meat. Mm-hmm. If you put that much, say, rotting beef in the same area, you'd be smelling the rotting beef.
Okay.
It's not like whale is that much smellier than other meats.
Yeah, but it occurs to me
that's the thing, in the water, that's how the fish will find the corpse of the whales. Like, oh my God, we got to follow this trail here.
They could smell it from the entire ocean.
Well, not the entire ocean, but definitely like miles to tens of miles away, sort of thing, and it'll attract everything. Lobsters and crabs will wind up going there and just trying to get pieces off for themselves. Free food, buddy, woo! So yeah. And that cost me $50,000 to learn. That's how I got my education. Woo.
So you actually, did you have courses specifically on marine
biology, yes, and ecosystems.
Marine ecosystems and stuff?
Of course, that said, I mean, really, like, you could probably hit up YouTube and just, Google that up and find a documentary that's, probably more fascinating than I am, because you could see images about the whole thing happening. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you could basically learn the same sort of thing. I mean, just Google up what happens to a whale when it dies, and you can probably find a nice little narrative paragraph or two explaining it all out.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it's actually quite fascinating from, the biological perspective.
What happens to the whale's bones?
Everything gets broken down. And it's the same thing as, what happens to, an elk's bones when it dies out in the woods. Although it will probably last a little longer for the whale. The elk would wind up getting its bones trampled down by other creatures and broken down much quicker through manual work, as opposed to the whale, where the bones won't be so trod upon.
Okay.
Something about three-dimensional movement means you don't step on other bones so often.
Well, I suppose then what happens is they get squished down into the clay sediment that whatever you have, and that gets covered over and weighed down and stuff, and then million years later it's uplifted again to where some geologist comes by. Oh, look at all these fossils.
That said, I have heard of at least one project whereby what they want to do is start sorting through this deep clay and try and find whale bones to get genetic samples to get a greater variety of the various species of whales, so that should there ever come to a point whereby we can get more variety into a species to help an endangered species out, because one of the problems with endangered species is a lack of genetic variability. They would be able to have a nice plethora of, genetic samples from which to take and make randomness from.
Wow.
That said, funding. I don't know if they can get proper funding to really make a concentrated effort on it. So
okay.
They might just be better off, getting some whale blubber from the Japanese and making certain they do samples on that.
All right.
Actually doing science on them like the Japanese say they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at you, Japan. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
So we did what? That's 3 different kinds of possible wastelands. What else?
And the fourth one, well, I guess 3.5, because the ocean is divided to the top, wasteland and the bottom wasteland.
Okay, sure.
And then there's the fourth one, the ultimate wasteland, the depth of space.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to bring up Mars as one example.
Oh yeah, the Xeno wasteland.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about something even more desolate than that. A spot where there's not even mass underneath your feet.
Okay.
I mean, at least the ocean has a buoyancy water thing. You can just go by getting a sail there. Unless you got a solar sail, you ain't getting anywhere in space, man.
Okay, yeah.
Space is moving around you. It's all relative. That's all the movement you're getting.
Well, I suppose, in space you're always moving relative to something.
Yes.
But it may take you a million years to encounter, or you may even never encounter, another object. So
yeah, because that's the weird thing about space is they named it after nothing, like a space, which is what it constitutes by a vast majority of its area. It's like nothing. It's space. That's why we call it space, man.
Yeah.
So just make sure all the people out there wrap their heads around it, because there's a lot of people say, oh yeah, space, and then they picture the stuff where it's like, oh, you get to another planet through a large leap. So no. Even Superman has problems with large leaps in most eras.
Yeah.
Although the Superman 1 million was able to leap from the Earth to the moon in a single bound. And for him, that wasn't considered anything at all.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because the solar system has an escape velocity too. I was just listening to that. Like, Earth has the escape velocity to
which
get
is
into
fun,
orbit.
because if you Google up like escape velocities XKCD, and they have like the various gravity wells and how much effort it would take to get off it, and like some of the moons of Mars apparently, with a good enough ramp, and a bicycle of and being pedaled with sufficient power, you can actually get out of orbit from that. So it's like, wow, man, you could pull off like an ET and go crazy into space that way.
I believe that, yeah.
But yeah, even the solar system itself has an escape velocity you need to get yourself out of. It's a crazy little thing. But yeah, I figured that one to be the ultimate, and that's all that popped up within just the moment of you saying the Desolate Wasteland. And so I suppose you could thereby qualify a wasteland, for the technical term of definitions,
all right,
as like an area with insufficient natural edible resources for the purpose of humanity. Because that's what we are. Unless you're in the future and you're a robot, in which case I guess you got different criteria. Figure out what it is. I can't help you. I'm in the past. But yeah, so you got insufficient resources, energy requirements, and it's there's something out there actively trying to hinder you as you go about. Because in the Arctic, it's the cold. The cold will kill you. The cold is what helped kill the Franklin expedition and made them resort to cannibalism. It's a wasteland, baby. It's just horrible. Whereas over in the savannah area, it's the heat, man. You can't think about like a desert wasteland without thinking, oh, the heat, dehydrating you until you see mirages and just sweat, no matter where you go. And the heat is so bad, you don't even want to move. Whereas over in the ocean, you've got a bit more of I guess you do have like the solar radiation, the heat, bouncing both down from you from the sun itself, as well as bouncing and reflecting back up from the reflection on the waves. But you also have like the salt in there, like being surrounded by all this water, and it's the salt that'll kill you, because we are very poorly adapted to that sort of thing. Crazy little animals we are. And then space has got your solar radiation, and the lack of pressure sort of thing. So it's like it's trying to get your insides to go outside, and then it's trying to microwave you at the same time. Although as a consolation, because heat is measured by how thermal energy moves into or out of a system, space is neither hot nor cold because there's not enough, molecules out there to bounce into you to absorb or, radiate heat. Yeah. So at least it's got that going for it, so it's not as bad in that one end of the spectrum as the desert and the, the Sahara is. So it's not 100% bad.
So adventures, I guess when you go to a wasteland, you can have an adventure like traveling through it to get across it to the other side.
Living in it, that's kind of like half the purpose of playing in the Ravenloft, the Dark Sun setting. Okay. Is you got that desolate wasteland, and they got, oh my goodness, they got like 6 or 7 different types of wasteland for your heat-oriented stuff. You got your rocky shelves, you got your sandy wastes, you got everything in between. It's all there, and it's all horrible.
And I guess we call it the wasteland because it's wasted, like it's not good for it. Like it's wasteland because it's not farmland.
Yeah, that would be like the Western civilization waste, wherein we cannot derive nutrients or profits from it.
Yeah, or I suppose, alpine, mountains and stuff would also be wasteland then.
Maybe on above the tree line, because underneath the tree line, it's like, hey, trees, resources, not a waste. Yeah. So yeah, once you go above the tree line, I suppose you could call that wasteland. But then it'd be like temporarily entering into that Arctic sort of wasteland thing. It's just an altitude version of it. Yeah, it's slightly different challenges because there's less air. In which case you wind up doing a blend of Arctic and space. Oh, how nice. It's a blended wasteland. But But yeah, I do like how you bring that up, though, that the Wasteland is from the purpose of, like, the modern eye sort of thing. Most people just saw it as, like, not exactly a good place to live. Let's go elsewhere. And you like, unless you got forced into the Wasteland, it's just like, whatever. It's just not a land for me.
Yeah. I guess sometimes the Wasteland is, in stories anyways, is artificially created. Like it might be a nuclear destruction.
Oh, yes, which, I mean, geez, Fallout 4 happening and we don't talk about a nuclear wasteland? Geez, we're slacking, Josh.
But it's weird because you read it, I've recently looked at those pictures from Chernobyl, and it's still
green.
Like, yeah, people can't live there, but it's basically nature is sort of reclaimed the
which is
area.
not necessarily the best thing, given that apparently it's crumbling some of their barriers. And so soon you'll have like tens of kilo rads pumping out. Like there are still some areas in Chernobyl where you cannot take a photo. Because one, if you step in there, you'll be dead before you can click the button.
Uh-huh.
And, well, I mean, like the older cameras would be so irradiated with the stuff there that no photo would be produced.
Because it exposes your film.
Yeah, it's effectively, you might as well open that up into the direct sunlight, man. It just completely ruins your old film. But even the modern ones, they have a hard time taking photos of, like where the core actually melted down. What they do is they send a robot out there to take the photo, and then they have to haul the corpse, air quotes, of the robot back because the radiation is so intense it burns out the electronics. So if you don't have something to pull the image down to where it's safe, automatically send it down through the wire, you're not getting anything out of there. It's been almost historically impossible to see that. It is a horrible wasteland. In that regard, like, it's toxic to everything. Like, you want to talk about the most sterile place on Earth, and like Chernobyl, Ground Central Station. That's about as good as it's going to get. It's killing everything. That's
kind of cool, though, as an adventure scenario. Like, you imagine, going into a place that looks basically like, trees and stuff, and plants are growing fine, and there's a few animals. They might have like some tumors and stuff, but there's still animals there. And so you go there, but there's no people, and it's like, why aren't there any people? And then you realize,
as your hair starts falling out in clumps. That said, it is a nice twist, because most people think Wasteland, and they think, like desolation. Whereas Chernobyl is very much not desolate, but it is very much a wasteland from our perspective.
Yeah.
That said, I kind of hope the Russian government puts up a new wall around the area just to make certain, things don't spread out too much. A lot of people lost their lives from radiation poisoning, and they're still having health effects, like generations down the line because of, DNA issues.
Yeah. Actually, I guess there's another kind of wasteland, which is just a park. Because a park is, sort of set aside as, no people are going to live here.
Well, unless you got, like, homeless issues.
I guess, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, sort of the idea of a park is that we don't build and develop. We don't put homes in there. We don't put businesses in there, except, just, your singular park.
Hot dog stands.
Your museum, your nature house that might have a gift shop or something. But other than that...
yeah, like the Beacon Hill Park, it's got, like the petting zoo.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good example of it.
They take donations, yeah. City parks are a bit different, I suppose. But we, like in Canada, we have national parks that are like,
huge
hundreds of square
land.
miles.
Like you standing here, like everything you see is parkland.
Yeah.
Which is pretty boss. I can't see that as wasteland because, like, I grew up, like, literally at some points, like, oh boy, I want to go swimming. Let's go into the park, and we go hit like the Radium Hot Springs.
Yeah.
I recommend it. Radium Hot Springs rocks. Go there. Pay the money because only the locals know where the free secret hot springs are, and we won't tell you. They are amazing, but it's only for locals. Yeah, no, like the actual hot springs pretty good. Fairmont Hot Springs, Radium Hot Springs, but I prefer the Radium. But it's actually in the park sort of thing, and you get to see like the wonderful things happening on in there. And it's not a wasteland by any stretch of the means. It's preserved land.
Okay.
So it's land that could have. Well, you could have had like the the town of Radium actually in the park, all set around the actual area of the hot springs, as opposed to just outside of the park. So it's like we could have done something with it, and Lord knows, like, there's some areas in that Kootenai National Park that, if you had enough money, I'm certain a rich person would love to have put just a great, like a wood mansion out there, just overlooking the valleys. Magnificent. That said, I also know about a few people who did manage to put a few log cabins out in the back there. Shh, don't tell anyone.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, they're great things.
Secret cabins.
Yes.
Huh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a wonderful little thing. And they do usually have a good policy on that sort of thing. It's well stocked with wood, and if you wind up like needing to use the spot, just don't mess anything up. Clean up the dishes after you use them, and chop more wood for whoever else has to come by. It's a very nice nature.
I guess, yeah, and there's a different. Sometimes Wasteland represents solitude. As long as you are sort of provided for in other ways, like you have your picnic with you, bring your bag lunch along, and you go to a wasteland. It's kind of nice, kind of peaceful, I suppose.
The meditational retreat in the wasteland.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that.
In which case, we'll take a little note over to D&D on this one. In which case, you have the chaotic, world of Limbo, where their Githzerai monks, make their monasteries in this horrible mass of chaos.
Yeah.
As they provide little seeds of order, so well ordered that the chaos cannot hurt them normally, unless you get huge chaos storms coming in. But yeah, they're the ones who go out into this wasteland in this case, Limbo being a wasteland in that it changes so quickly you can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting fictional wasteland you probably don't see at all in the real world. Although you could make parallels to the oceanic wasteland. The surface underneath you changes so rapidly you can't set your foot down without sinking into the water. Liquids, or no. But yes, they use their wasteland as a meditational retreat, and a way to prove how tough they are. Like, I guess those Tibetan monks sort of thing. It's like, now we cut a hole in the ice, and we're gonna dip the water, dip the clothes in the water, and then we're gonna put that on you, and you gotta dry it off with your body heat, and we're gonna keep that up till sunrise. If you're not dead, you advance up to the next level. Congratulations. I guess the Desolate Wasteland would make a wonderful area. So I guess, that means sometime in the future we will have space monks that live up in the depths of space, just to meditate in perfect, serene quietness.
I like that thought. Yeah, or even just low Earth orbit could be there. They could build a monastery up there and just.
Welcome to the Buddhist orbital.
I suppose when there becomes a space elevator, if that happens in the next.
I'm just kind of hoping for gravity shields, so we can just apply the gravity shield, and poof, you just go flying up into the air.
Okay.
Because it sounds like a lot more fun.
Yeah. But yeah, it'll open up sort of that whole area of space for example, for monasteries, hotels, amusement parks, just whatever kind of thing you want to put up there. Oh
God, the amusement parks in orbit would just be amazing. The only downside is that you'd wind up having to time how long you're there to every 90 minutes, so that when you leave, you go back to where you were, not on the other side of the Earth.
Yeah.
So, come on, Dad, we can't leave now. We're not going to be over top of where we need to leave for another 45 minutes. It's like, damn it. They make a good point. Let's go on some more rides. So what do you suppose? Zero-G skee ball would be a thing?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I guess you don't roll the ball in space. You just basically throw it.
Well, here's the thing. Zero-G skee ball happens around a corner. They've got like an angled thing, and what you have to do is you have to bounce it off of that angled thing as it hits the corner of the L joint, and you got to get into the hole the other way there.
Yeah, all right.
How does that sound?
That sounds fun.
There you go. That's worth a few tokens to spend.
Although, I suppose is skee ball, because you can't throw the ball directly at the holes.
You're
in
not
skee ball.
supposed to. They will tell you not to.
but also sometimes there's like a net in front of you.
The net in front is one way. That said, I do believe they also use a nice bouncy sort of like cork wood, preferentially in that, so that if you do try and do it anytime, it would bounce off on anything, it would just go rocketing crazy.
Nice.
So that way, to almost guarantee it in, you either have to have like perfect, nothing but net sort of, aim, or roll it so that it goes up at a much more graceful and slow, low energy angle.
Chuck E. Cheese in space.
Yes. Hey, maybe they'll revitalize Chuck E. Cheese. Oh, but wait, Zero G Pizza? Yeah. Sounds messy and almost impossible to cook. We'd have to find 3-dimensional pizza. Like solid core
like a sphere?
Yeah, it would be like a small little like a nugget of the bread, and then you'd have like a molten layer of the sauce all around it, and a little layer of cheese on that one, with a few pepperoni pieces on there.
Yeah.
Although maybe just put it on a stick or something, I don't know. Make it a little easier to eat that way.
Man, I can't wait for like space amusement parks.
Yeah, I think I'm going to wind up going to bed depressed tonight, knowing that I might be too old by the time they get them, and I won't be able to go on any rides. But this is why you have kids, so that, like they or, their kids could wind up going on the ride and you can vicariously enjoy it.
Yeah.
Take that age, you won't get the space, amusement parks from me. Okay, like space seems a lot more fun though, because you don't hear about like a lot of like amusement parks happening in a desert, like the Sahara. Although Waterworld sort of thing would definitely be a thing, water parks are a huge thing.
Okay.
Not a lot of amusement park things happening in the Northwest Territories, I've noted. It's like, oh boy, come to freeze your took us off.
That's true. That's what they should do. They should build an amusement park. Well, I was thinking Antarctica, but as a test ground, they could
just
do it
Arctic.
Just in the Canadian Arctic, which you can, in theory, you can walk to.
Yeah. So what would they have in? I'm going to call it Snowland.
In Snowland, what attractions?
What attractions are in Snowland?
I don't know, like a whale that you like made out of snow that you can walk through.
Ooh, I could dig that.
Yeah.
I do know they do have some fancy ice hotels in other places of the world.
Oh yeah.
So you could wind up doing that.
Just an ice maze, that'd be fun.
Oh, especially if you get like the good clear ice, because that way it would be like almost completely invisible.
Yeah.
It's like, walk the invisible ice maze. Don't worry about bumping your head. There's a lot of ice to rest that on. Excellent.
Yeah. Arctic attractions.
Although, like when I picture like an Arctic attraction sort of thing, it would be like one of those bubble dome cities where it's like we're out here in the middle of the desolate wasteland, but inside it's like perfectly, like 73 degrees.
Got like
Fahrenheit.
a wave pool in there.
Yeah, and it's like basically we'll just call it the middle finger to Mother Nature. It's like, you be cold all you want out there, thermally insulated, baby.
Yeah, well, I was reading, I think like China, I think in Beijing, I think they have something like that, the world's largest enclosed space.
And yet the biospheres don't seem to be doing so well. They've failed miserably. So apparently only the artificial human habitats are the ones that are viable. That said, we do run the risk of turning it into a Logan's Run scenario. Okay. Where, like, oh no, now you're not allowed to leave our perfect society.
Yeah.
On the other hand, who would want to leave the perfect society because it's cold out there? It's a desolate wasteland. Oh well.
Yeah.
So we have noted that there are differences between these wastelands as we've presented them.
All right.
And so that does change the storytelling thing. Like the Wild West town, for instance, in the stereotypical thing. We'll say the town of Gunpoint.
Okay.
There was like the concept of a town called Gunpoint in the Wild West.
Yeah, I like it.
Like you see a person coming in from the desert sort of thing and be like, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Where the man with no name is just blistered and almost dying, sort of thing. It's very hard, but you do effectively go on a horse that way, as opposed to the stories about someone coming in from the void of space, in which case you've got either Lovecraftian abominations, or like heroic aliens. Superman, the Martian Manhunter, Starfire, whatnot, as it goes down and about. In which case, it's just like, oh yes, I just flew far enough in this direction through what is effectively like space air until I found Earth. You can't miss it as long as you go in this direction.
Oh yeah, sure.
And so it just doesn't seem to hit it. Like you don't hear a story about like oh yes, when Starfire first arrived on Earth, she was parched and mostly irradiated, almost on the verge of death. It's like no, she landed in her space bikini, looking perfect.
Yeah.
And it's like most of them are just like in a spacesuit. Otherwise, it's like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry at all.
I like the thought though that the Lovecraftian horrors are like arrive on Earth. Like, and that actually is their sort of emaciated version. Like
they plump up, they get wind up cute or something.
Yeah, maybe they grow some fur.
What if that is their spacesuit? What if there's something a little bit more, like normal inside, but like no, don't worry, the tentacles are just for grabbing stuff. Just let me find the zipper.
And then it's just a person in there.
It's just like maybe a green person or something.
Person,
It's like, yeah, we use biomecha. Like, why? You guys still using electronics? Ha, primitives.
Well, do you remember Independence Day with the alien? The alien had this suit that was like a bio.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
There's some nice weird stuff going on there.
And then another Will Smith. In my brain, I was just putting them together, but it was a different movie. MIB had the little alien dude in a person suit.
Yes.
Or a person, like a robot that looked like a guy.
Which for them would have been a giant mecha.
Yeah.
Living in the world of giants. I would have liked to have seen the story from their perspective, where instead of like them being small, it's like everything else on this planet is huge. You must go into the body of a giant mecha and control it to disguise yourself and live as one of them. Otherwise, you're too small for them to notice and you could get hurt. Da-da-da-da. Also, they're kind of stupid. They don't believe life exists on other planets. Da-da-da-da.
How about this other scenario? Fighting like a war over a wasteland.
Which is actually an interesting point. There is a border that Egypt shares with one of its neighbors, where there's like a big bump one way and a small bump the other. And both of them are claiming different border lines because they want the territory.
Yeah.
But if you make a claim on one and you disclaim the other, so there's a small spot of land where neither nation wishes to claim it, and they both disavow it. They say, no, that's not our land. So you actually have a small spot of land that's unclaimed by any nation. Yeah,
I remember reading about that too, and some American guy, just a dude, actually, like a few people have been like, oh, it's not claimed? Well, if it's not claimed, I guess I can just say it's mine, and I don't know.
Who's going to say, no, it's mine instead, because that way I'll resolve things and finally get a resolution off this.
But one of these such people was an American guy, and he actually went there, like physically went there and planted a flag.
Yeah.
Of, like his own little country. He's like, yeah, I'm going to...
But did he say what the place was like?
It's a wasteland.
It's a wasteland. So's the large bump, but there's more land to claim on that one. And that's what the whole thing is. It's just a pissing argument about who gets to claim more land that nobody's going to do anything with. Just in case, right?
But I was thinking, you have these scenarios sometimes, like in your fiction, your stories, where you have like soldiers like fighting like over like.
You can make an argument that the trenches in World War I were very much a wasteland.
That's kind of true.
And that they were fighting over
godforsaken territory.
Just like hell blasted, like turf.
Yeah.
Because they've been like bombarded with their various, artillery fire through for so many years. It's just like no one wants this. Mind you go to those areas now. They're usually, if they're not farmland, they're wonderful and beautiful and everything and all that. It's like, oh, okay, this looks like something somebody would fight over, not this blasted heath and landscape I've seen before.
Yeah, that's true. Well, also part of, Holland and stuff. If you break their dams or dikes, you get all that nice land gets flooded and covered in water.
Fortunately, they have a wonderful system with several levels of redundancy to prevent that from happening. Take a note of that, New Orleans. You may want to see what they're doing and copy, paste.
Yeah. And also Bangladesh and I don't know how many other areas in the world that are so near sea level. And
that said, Florida, just give it up. You're slowly sinking. No matter how much you go for that, eventually you're going to lose all of yourself. I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
only a matter of 10, 12,000 years. Just let it go. It'll be easier in the long run.
10,000. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. Thanks to the way things are going, the Great Lakes are draining out as their land is still slowly recovering from the weight of all the glaciers on it, and so they're getting smaller. So we're getting more land there.
Yeah.
But Florida's going down just because it's swampy land. It's just not working right.
You'd think, 12,000 years would be enough to build like walls, like seawalls around each city, but I suppose there's all that.
At 12,000 years from now, we better have something better than just building a wall against the water. We better have Tesseract technology. It's like, oh yeah, this one point is where you go to access the city. It exists in its own quantum super reality pocket dimension. So we, in 12,000 years, we should be doing a little bit better than walls or just force fields. But that's just me. I don't know. I don't want to put any pressure on the future generations.
Here's another scenario for Wastelands. Is what if you're like an eco warrior, fighting against? I don't know if it, our modern sort of governments with bulldozers and stuff, or you might be like a future eco warrior fighting against a syndicate, corporo syndicate, megacorp. But you're trying to keep the wasteland pristine for some reason. Because it is pristine. Yeah, whether it's just because you're nuts or because you actually have, in this particular case, you have a good reason. Maybe you're protecting ancestral land or something like that. I don't know.
How could your ancestors have been if it wound up being on a wasteland?
Well, I guess maybe a wasteland depending on who's looking at it, right?
But here's the thing. Shouldn't a wasteland be the best area to start to, building stuff up on? It's like, listen, we can either chop down this wonderful, thriving, old woods forest, or we can set up something on this wasteland where nothing, major is growing. And so, in terms of how much, natural life is lost, you wind up doing much better leaving that old growth forest pristine and untouched and just building on a horrible wasteland.
Okay, well, let me ask you this.
Like Detroit.
Like, from a biologist's point of view, would you determine that by the biodiversity? Like, is there an index?
It's very easy to create an index of biodiversity. You could utilize number of species, the variety of the species, or you could simply work it down into a biomass in so many kilotons per unit area.
Okay.
In which case, well, because that's the thing is you'd wind up having to get two different answers on that. Because something like the Arctic Circle area, you do have a lot of variety for stuff like plant life and lichens and small insects and all that stuff going on.
Yeah.
So it would have a great biodiversity in that regard, but very low biomass.
Okay, but there's something to be said for if it's good biodiversity or poor let me see. What you want
How many types of lichen do you want on the ground, and how much are you willing to sacrifice to make sure this lichen can continue being as it is?
It also matters, how unique is that particular... If there's hundreds of square kilometers of this particular biome with very similar or the same species in it, and you only take a few square to build your plant or your amusement park or whatever you're building in the wasteland, then that's probably okay.
Keep in mind it's not just that area, though, because a wasteland it can be defined by human-level wasteland, and it doesn't help us out much, but it's still good for others. You do have to count the change in the area. For instance, with birds, if you chop down half of a forest, you don't still have half the forest being good area for the birds, because their tweets will be different based around how many trees are there. Therefore, the perimeter of the forest winds up being a bad zone, and what you want is a really thick inner style forest. So if you chop down half the forest, you wind up with less than half left because you still got to work minus the perimeter into such an area.
Yeah.
So you do have to factor in some area in addition to that, and if you got if you're building it in the middle of the wasteland as opposed to just at the edge of the wasteland, it would make a vast difference in how much you're disturbing it.
Okay, and then there's also sometimes there's a little valley or something where there's not much there, but it's the only
route
one
from A to B.
Or maybe it's the only one that has that particular species of frog or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So you wouldn't want to build. I don't know. Even though it's mostly wasteland, it's just got this one particular unique species or a set of species or a little,
man, that frog better be something special. Man.
Ecosystem.
What's up with that frog? Like, what makes it so special?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you've done bioethics very much, but is there?
I have. I was very frustrated by many areas of it.
Okay.
Call me a mad scientist if you will, but I was very frustrated with their attempts at explanations.
Okay.
Because yes, like some areas of BC, like you cannot work here. We've got a subspecies of deer that we have proven have a genetic difference from that of the rest of the population of deer within the province, and yada yada. Thus, they are special. It's like, so what makes them so special? Like, just because they got a couple of different alleles, like what's really the difference? Like, how special and different are they really? As opposed to, like, they're just an inbreeding subpopulation with, like, homozygosity in a few specific areas that you don't see in the rest of the wild population. Like, really, like, they help show me the difference between that. Unfortunately, a lot of judges aren't educated in that field to tell the difference, and thus they hear it unique, and thus it must be unique and be somewhat special. And so it winds up on the side of the eco-defenders, which I'm okay with it. I think you should always side a tie.
Be more cautious.
Yeah, on the side of caution and the eco-friendliness.
Okay.
But the excuse is like a kid's excuse. The more it gets used, the less precious it becomes.
Okay, yeah.
Like when a kid tells you some adorable little line about, why they can't brush their teeth tonight. It's like, that's so adorable. Oh, haha, that's a good joke, sort of thing. But then, when they're using it after a week, it's like, no, I'm through with this excuse. Go brush your teeth.
Okay.
So yeah, there's that bit there.
But I suppose, almost every area that has life, you could probably make some kind of argument for why you need to preserve it.
And that is a counter-argument against the, it's a unique subpopulation. It's like, so what?
Yeah.
They're all subpopulations. You want to keep dividing, you can get down to the individual creature, and oh boy, look at the variance you see between this creature and the other creature living next to it. They are both special in their own equal subzones.
Yeah.
Where are you going to cut that divide?
Okay.
So yeah, it's a contentious point from a biological perspective on that one. I do like looking at the Wasteland though as just like something more like the salt flats, where it's like, okay, yeah,
it's like, there's definitely no life,
and it's inherently hostile to life. You want to build something there and just put a bunch of greenery in there, go for it.
Okay, yeah.
Mind you, that may not be the proper answer that way either from a grander perspective, because we can look at Vegas. Las Vegas is a nice example. Mm-hmm. It's a great city, both the Strip as well as the actual city that surrounds it.
Yeah.
Yeah, get this, folks. There's more to Vegas than just a bunch of casinos. There's actually a city around there with people doing things that don't take place on the Strip. Hooray! But it is effectively in the middle of a desert. And to keep all the stuff green and to feed all the people and to get all the water and all that, you gotta spend a lot of resources, water resources, like land to grow the stuff that they need and all this and all that and all the other stuff that is required to make a city happen. And thus, it might not be the best idea to put it in an area that's going to require extra resources to exist. So yeah, sometimes the wasteland is not the best answer in that case because it takes up more energy and resources. For now, we'll see how the future goes with vertical farming. Maybe they'll be able to really cut things down, and not just forests.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess. Okay. Another little issue with the wasteland, or whether you call something a wasteland, is sure it can support. Like if you have one guy, like a guy lands on a desert island, and he's like, "Oh no, how am I going to survive?" Well, I'm
Oliver Queen.
I found this, these animals that I can eat, these fish, these birds, I can eat their eggs. But if you try and put a town on that island, that's not going to support the town, right?
Yeah, the scaling up issues.
Yeah.
What could support one apex predator, such as humanity, could not necessarily support 200 of them.
Yeah.
Same reason that you're not going to drop 200 wolves into a park somewhere.
Yeah.
Everyone starves and dies, first the lower trophic levels, then the higher up. Although, it actually recalls to me a story about a moose island sort of thing. It was an actual island. They just called it Moose Island. I don't know if that's its actual name.
Okay.
But it was initially an island without any like moose on it, sort of thing. Full of lichen, wonderful and plentiful and that sort of thing. And some moose eventually managed to like swim on over and have a little breeding population. And it went from like 2 moose to like 2,000 moose quickly because there were so many lichen resources. And oh my goodness, it was so good. And the population just skyrocketed. Do you know what happens when a population skyrockets?
They starve?
Yes, they starve to death.
Yeah.
As they eat all the resources and which, by the way, for those of you out there outside of Canada, that's why we club baby seals. We're not horrible, Canadians. Let's club seals. This is a great national pastime. Mm-hmm. We club them now to keep the population in check so they don't all starve later on. It's a quick death versus a long starvation death. Although I will agree with you, I do not approve of all of the eradication methods. I do think a quick thing is what it's supposed to be. So, like get rid of that board with a nail in it and just get a proper shotgun, you horrible, horrible person. Mm.
Well, I think like what's supposed to happen in nature is, like you were saying, the population explodes and then they die off. Well, that's
how nature goes.
Or most of them die off. And eventually
life exists to exploit as much as it can to become as much of itself as it can.
Yeah, and then it dies off, and but a few survive, and then it sort of reaches an equilibrium.
It should. There are enough areas where we show that they are unable to naturally reach the equilibrium of stuff like deer and wolves.
Okay.
Whereby it'll just go too high. Like, it's an interesting thing because you can do a plot over time for both populations, and it'll wind up on the right graph doing a spiral around a center. And the wolf to like deer ratio. And what you want to do is have it slowly cycle inwards until it hits the 0-0 point, where there's not too many one, not too many the other, and there's wonderfully balanced.
Yeah.
But it's always so extreme on the one. It's like, okay, now we got almost no wolves, as though the deer population just goes through the roof, and then all of a sudden, because they got so many deer things going on there, that the wolves make a huge increase in numbers because there's food everywhere. We can't not eat our fill. And then you get so many wolves, and they're eating so many deer, and then the deer population winds up dropping off because they're getting eaten by the wolves, which means the wolves wind up starving because there's not enough food for them to eat, which drops their population. And then dropping their population makes the deer population explode because there's no natural predator for them. And it just keeps cycling because it's too extreme, and it needs to get a little cull here sort of thing where it's like, okay. We kill some of the deer, and we kill some of the wolves, and then, now they're orienting themselves into that 0-0 point where it's getting... That's it, it'll never hit that perfect amount. Things will change, and populations will vary.
I suppose, there's always something to disrupt the equilibrium.
That's how nature goes. I mean, you just have to hope that things wind up being okay so that you don't get too big of, a change to pop it back out of this, lower orbit.
Yeah.
Which is a nice way of thinking about it for those of you from, I guess, a physics perspective. Think of it as high energy orbits and low energy orbits for electrons.
Okay.
For some reason, it's not hitting that low energy state like it should because it's biology and it's messy.
Yeah.
And so it's always on a high energy going back and forth between things.
And then sort of what we attempt to do as humans when we try to manage systems like that is that we go in there with a cull.
Off and we'll just trim out a little number here so it doesn't get so high.
Yeah.
And then that way it doesn't get so low, and it hopefully goes back,
that's the intent. Sometimes it goes disastrous, and sometimes it goes kind of okay.
It really depends on whether or not you believe you can count all the animals.
Well,
and there's entire subgroups of math devoted into finding different techniques for counting all the animals, especially the aquatic stuff.
Yeah.
Fun fact, wherever you exist in life, chances are there's a fisheries department related to your local area. Try getting them to admit they don't know how many fish are in the sea. They won't say it because they got hired because the people who said there's no way we can count all the fish in the sea didn't get the job. Because the one guy said, I can count all the fish in the sea, but you'll have to hire me for it. And the people bought the story. And it keeps happening. And that's why the fishery stuff keeps getting into trouble. So, we thought there'd be 10 million fish coming in this year. It's like, that was one interpretation of the graph of population change over time. There was 7 major different ways as to how it would go based on the variables. And you cherry-picked all your data, and now you're wrong. And so they fire that person. They hire someone else who says, I can get better data. And they predict the same sort of thing to keep the job. Which is weird, because you think with a thing where, you see this high, cycling through of one replacing the other and never hitting that proper equilibrium, you think a biologist would learn. You think they'd take the lesson for themselves and say, okay, listen, I can get you more accurate data, and eventually we'll be able to reach, the numbers that you want with the accuracy we need. And yet no one's willing to come forward and say it.
So another thing that happens with Wastelands is, now that we've talked
sorry
a
about
little
that
bit
tangent there,
about cycles, though, is
a real close tangent. Sorry for the biologist. My bad.
I think of the rise and fall of civilization, where you have like a particularly warm period, and you get people like, oh, we can grow all this grain, like we have.
Let's start farms on Iceland and Greenland, and then like the little ice age comes, and it turns out Greenland's not such a great place to be raising animals or crops. Iceland's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So you wind up getting a bit of a contraction.
Or in the Middle East, like the Fertile Crescent, you irrigate. You learn how to irrigate, and it's like, this is great. We have this awesome new technology. We can irrigate our fields, and they do it for year after year after year, and just slowly the nutrients get used up. And
because they were indeed utilizing one of the more primitive styles that doesn't involve nitrogen fixation.
Yeah.
Say what you want about the stupid ages of the medieval era, at least they knew about crop rotation systems.
Yeah.
1 year for the heather sort of thing to build up the nitrogen, 1 year fallow where you don't do anything in it, and 1 year where you do stuff like wheat or crops of your standard turnips or whatever. Have some fun with it.
Okay.
So yeah, call it the dung ages if you will. At least they knew how to crop rotate. They figured that much out through trial and error.
So you might end up with a wasteland that's actually got, like ruins and like old buildings and stuff in it that you can like encounter as, for adventure's sake.
Or at least storytelling purposes.
There used to be a civilization here. What happened to them?
And that's the thing. I mean, you can go down to like the New Mexico area, where apparently there was a very nice period of time. It was like, oh boy, yeah, we can do all sorts of stuff because we can grow the crops. And then things started, warming up and drying out. And it's like, we're hungry. Let's leave the civilization. It doesn't seem to be working. And thus then, I believe that's the best possible alternative to what happened. Otherwise, it's like they starved to death.
My impression, one thing that could happen though is because they're on a continent and they do have neighbors, they just start going a little bit more and more into debt into the neighbors. Like, hey, like this year, we're a little bit short, but hey, we can get those guys. We'll just promise them a little extra next year, and then little by little you sort of borrow from your neighbors, and it's like, oh, those neighbors are barbarians and they're tired of being taken advantage of, so they come and either kill you or drive you out, or you're like, okay.
Or they just say no when you starve to death.
Yeah,
that's it. You can look at it the other way. What if you've got people living in a wasteland and they're getting their resources by pillaging the areas of plenty?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Which is a lot of those magical forces of darkness like the orcs do. It's like Moria, is not a good area to be growing crops. Like, where are all these goblins eating? Mordor is not a hospitable land. Like, like it was burning underneath your feet just to walk the surface.
Right.
It's not an area you're going to be growing crops.
Yeah.
So I mean, like figure that out. Like where are they getting it from? They're pillaging out in the areas of Gondor. They're taking the croplands year after year. I suppose, depending on your perspective, you could say the same thing about like the Huns, and the sacking of Rome. Rome was the area of plenty. The Huns were the barbarians in the wasteland, cultural, civilization-based wasteland in this regards. They didn't have the infrastructure to build all the wonderful stuff that Rome had, so they just went there, bloodied a few noses, took what they wanted, and left.
Yeah. Well, interesting though. Rome wasn't at that point. Rome was importing grain from I think from Carthage, right? Or is it that might have a different era? But
the central areas of Rome were. And the population was so high.
So I mean, Rome was the land of plenty because they were drawing in all the resources from around the country. And then if Rome itself,
their aqueduct programs alone were just mind-numbingly beautiful from an architectural perspective. Just like, there's a mountain in the way. We'll put a hole in the mountain and keep it at just such a slight angle that the water will always flow the right way without ever getting stagnant. And we will do this with Bronze Age technology. And they did. And it's just like, You guys, I'm loving you. How did you do that? Watch stuff on the History Network when they're not playing stuff about like trash pickers. They'll actually tell you eventually.
That's interesting. That and they have like sprawling cities. I guess I'm thinking of like the
urban
Babylon
wasteland
areas.
in this case, yes.
Yeah, which just they couldn't support anymore. It's like, oh no, there's no food here. Even though like at one point it was this like center of civilization. They're like, oh no, this is great. This is like everything, all the wealth
lead to Rome.
Yeah, and I mean Rome nowadays. Rome is again a fairly modern city.
Now for like a European place, a
Yeah.
lot of them aren't like modern city as what you would picture New York City to be like.
Yeah, right. But there was times like over the last in the centuries where Rome was very much depleted and it was sort of a ghost town in ways.
So
because
yes,
they moved the capital elsewhere, and
the unmentioned area, the urban wasteland.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We haven't talked about that much.
Which is like almost a shame that we're getting technically just over the limit, but we'll go a little extra because that is like a prime adventuring thing. Like the concept of the dungeon in Dungeons and Dragons is like a bunch of empty rooms filled with horrible monsters and all that sort of stuff.
And treasure.
And like. The history, there was treasures in there. It's like, oh, look at this artwork here, and look at this here that we hid, that we meant to come back for, but then we all died of starvation. And so, like, the urban wasteland is an ideal jungle territory sort of thing, and a great, like, a dungeon in and of itself. Yeah. I use jungle in this term because, it represents the traps and hazards that are just passively there. Very few jungles are actually out to kill you. In like an active regard, it's all just like, oh yeah, when you die, we will totally make use of every part of you.
Okay.
In which case, yeah, your urban jungle, is that sort of sense. Although it doesn't really always play out too similar in the real world, because I did make a crack at Detroit being a bit of a wasteland earlier on. It did lose like 1 out of 4 residents when the economy went bump. And yeah, they got a lot of derelict houses. But what they are doing now is they're like tearing down some of those houses and putting in like small micro parks.
Oh yeah.
To help make the area look better and actually do something with the land to make it less of a wasteland.
Yeah.
That said, there's some other deep issues I might not want to get into there, but it does qualify as a very good example of your urban wasteland as well as making use of the wasteland, converting it into something useful.
Yeah. Speaking of Detroit, I don't know if Detroit counts, but going a little bit further north, but not all the way Arctic. Canada, we have sort of this land of lakes in Manitoba, where it's
the amount of lakes is dependent on what time of the year it is, given how often they flood and form into one larger lake.
All right, and then it's just all buggy and sort of swampy, and I suppose we have muskeg further north and stuff like that. So. I don't know if that counts as wasteland.
From the perspective of the, we can't build much here, yes.
Yeah.
I say can't build much, I mean, like, big things. You can't build, like a big processing plant here. You can't build, like a skyscraper here. The ground's not suited for it. Mm-hmm. Smaller places, buildings, you can have, like, small communities up there that are doing perfectly okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And some who are kind of poor and crummy, but
they are poor and crummy in some senses, but they are rich in others in some of the non-monetary ways.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Depends on how dependent they wish to try and be upon, the rest of society at large. Some places, it's like okay, yeah, it's not a big place, but we repair the houses when they need repairing, and we do it this way, and we make our own like logs as we need them, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So there's some actual areas that have subsistence timber industry. Like we only cut down the trees as we need them.
Yeah.
It's not the most updated technology. It doesn't need to be. It's not needed to be cutting down so many trees to help pay for it off, sort of thing. Which is very, very innovative work going on there. But it'll never wind up being the next giant Canadian city. It can only really hold about as many people as what they've got in the local area there.
Okay.
And you know what? That's fine. Not every little location for humanity has to be the big sprawling mega complex. In which case, Wasteland may just be your sense of scale going on there. As
Yeah.
you mentioned, with the one person being able to handle it, but not 200.
Yeah.
Or the hermit out meditating.
Yeah.
So in which case, yeah, the Wasteland is might just be very, very much like a context-dependent thing to look at. Which, by the way, makes for a good story. I do believe the Horse with No Name song tells of such a thing. Where the man goes out, on a horse with no name, and it's like, a desert and all that, and by the third day, he really sees all the life that's going on is blooming. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to take the time to change your senses to get the right way, which is a very good way of showing a transition of character if you're writing a story. He goes into an area and he sees things one way, and then as he learns more about himself, he sees things in another way, and he comes out changed. He literally sees things differently. Which is a nice way of helping describe the transition in the character growth arc. Hooray! NaNoWriMo, I'm helping you out, even if I'm not writing much myself.
Yeah, I think that's all covered. I should do our social media?
Yeah, go for social media.
Okay, Facebook.com/TheSimulationist. You can like that page and you can comment on it. It shows up in the little sidebar if you comment, if you say things, and I will see it, and I will read it and possibly respond to it. And I try to put the related links, like when we talk about stuff, I try to put that also on the Facebook page just to have it there. So you can always, look at our Facebook page. Like us on youtube.com/TheSimulationist, where it's also open for comments. It's the same show as this one. Email us, thesimulationist@gmail.com. Tweet at me @spaceboot1. That's my Twitter handle.
I do not have a handle at all.
Ryan does not have a Twitter handle.
I'm a lurker.
I don't tweet that much I'm trying to get better at it, and I have got a few more Twitter followers recently, so thank you if you have followed me. I appreciate it very much.
If it makes you feel better, there is fake tweeters out there. Like they just had a computer make friends with other people, see what their comments were, parse them, and reiterate them. And they wound up getting more friends that way and having a completely fake Twitter existence.
Okay. I think I have a few
Twitter bots?
They're bots, but they're sort of created by people. I think they're actually kind of good because they're marketing. They're trying to push stuff that's actual content. They're trying to find. They're not necessarily the best at it, but they're trying to actually find people tweeting good content and try to push it forward. So I think it's half. It's not the best because it's bot-ish. It's a little bit spamish.
It's not actually a human being there. How dare you?
Yeah.
When the robots gain artificial intelligence and all that stuff up, do you know how bad a line that's going to wind up looking? So it's not really good because it's a robot, not really a person behind there. You horrible bio-racist.
That's Twitter. And if you found us on iTunes or Stitcher, there's places to write reviews for us. We would love to have your review on the show. Give us as many stars or thumbs up as you think we deserve, and share us with your friend in real life or on message boards that you frequent or wherever else you happen to, run into people who might appreciate a good conversation about Wastelands.
Because I want to bring in a final note here. Because I mentioned the robots, and I was just thinking, a wasteland, as we defined it, was very, very human dependent. So it occurs to me that you could have space in the future be fairly well habitated by robots, for whom the void is just ample working conditions and not really that much of it's a threat to even be out here. It's no, I'm built and designed for the space thing.
Yeah.
So you could wind up being that. It's space. It may seem like a wasteland of absolutely nothingness, but when you look in, it's teeming with artificial life, thriving in all nooks and crannies.
And I suppose you could throw human protagonists into there and what are we supposed to eat? There's only oil and metal out here.
Say, you should have thought of that before you moved out of here, Fleshy. Keep on moving. We don't like your kind here. You go back down to your blue mud ball.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a nice setup for just any sort of number of stories there, man. Space is owned by the robots because they're better at living there than we are.
Yep.
Oh, well, I suppose if things don't work out well with artificial intelligence, it's a way to go. they don't get Earth, we get to keep Earth, but dude, they've got like space, which is a lot more.
Yeah, there's more of space. There's always going to be more of space.
So I was like, hey, we got the quality, they've got the quantity.
Yeah.
That said, I do hope for a nice, pleasant life between human and robot in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we can get along. We should be able to get along. Might not be easy, but we can do it.
I hope so.
There's issues. I won't say there's not issues.
Yeah.
But we can do that without forcing one side or another out to the wasteland. Yeah, what if it's like the robots keep Earth, but we get banished out to the wasteland of space?
Yeah.
Where we're not well suited at all. We got to eke out survival in all the crazy little areas that are just habitable enough for humanity to thrive a little bit.
Yeah.
Not like the grandness of the days of Earth. But still, we can survive. Da-da-da-da.
That's cool.
Yeah, I dig that one too. Yes, I've been Ryan Kirkley.
All right, I've been Josh 11.
You'll hear from us again in another 7 days.
All right, send money.